First thing we're going to do, and I know this is great right after this announcement of retirement, but let's shift gears. I want you to join me in a few mental games that we're going to play. In these games, you are trying to win. You are trying to maximize your chance to win. So don't do this like flip. Give it a little thought, come up with an answer. First of all, you're in a game with one other opponent, and it's a very simple one. You're going to pick a number from 1 to 10, both of you. And I have a random number generator up here, like the ping pong balls, like they have for the lottery. So there's no way I know what number is going to come up, but I'm running this game. So you go first, then the other person goes. Whoever gets closest to the number drawn out wins. Now don't shout out your answer, but think to yourself, pick a number from 1 to 10, maximize your chance to win, go. Pick a number, just think about it. Okay, now keep that in mind. We're going to change the number a little bit. This time you go second. Same thing, 2 players, random number generator, but you go second. The first player goes and says, I pick 3. What do you pick? Okay. Now, there are correct answers to both of these, by the way. It's not a matter of opinion. If you're trying to win, on number 1, you should have picked 5 or 6. If you did not maximize your chance to win. And here's why. It doesn't matter if you're high or low. I didn't say you couldn't go over the number. So if you pick 5 and they pick 4, then you're going to win on 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 6 out of the 10. You win. If you pick 5 and they pick 6, okay, you each have 5 chances to win. You get 1 through 5, they get 6 through 10. If you pick a lower or higher number and they know what they're doing, they're going to beat you at least on the odds that they will win. If you just say, oh, I like the number 8, it looks cool, or 8's my lucky number, and you go with 8, they're going to pick 7. And they win on 1 through 7. 70% chance of winning. You have a 30% chance of winning. 8, 9, and 10. 3 out of 10, 30%. I love math, by the way, and percentages. The second one, the first player picks 3. There's only one right answer. You pick 4. Because then you win on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 70% chance. Now you're going to say, why in the world am I doing this? Bear with me. You will see why. Now it gets harder. No questions. Just wait. Now it gets harder. 3 players. And you get to go last. The first player picks 3, and the second one picks 6. What do you pick? Think about that for a minute. First player picks 3, you pick 6, or the second one picks 6. What do you pick? Okay, the correct answer is 7. If you haven't got this with me so far, it's going to start making sense, hopefully. Because 7, you win on 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's 4 out of the 10. First player wins on 1, 2, 3. Next one would win on 6. I'm sorry, I misspoke. 6, if you pick, if they pick 6, you got 3 and 6. Okay, so 3 wins on 4. 6 wins on...
No, you get backwards.
3 wins on 4.
Correct.
3 wins on 4. What did I say?
I don't know.
I thought I said that. Okay, 6 wins on 5, because that's closest, but you're gonna have the best chance of winning. Okay, one more, and then we'll get away.
Where's the chart?
One more. I should have done a chart, except the other churches don't have
You
the...
have an equal chance with the person who picked 3.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's your best.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
But it's your best chance.
Your
picking
best
last.
chance, yes. And the final one is, and this is the tough one, and you can argue on this one. There's a couple of good responses. There are 3 players, and they all know what they're doing, but you have to pick first. And you have to pick a number that still gives you some decent chances to win, and you have to assume they're trying to win also. So if you are going to go first and you're trying to get the other 2 to pick numbers that give you more than one chance to win, what are you going to try? Now there's a couple of ways of looking at this. This is the most fun one of all. You could try picking number 1. And you would think, why would I pick number 1? Because the next person's going to pick number 2. No, they're not. Because the last person will pick number 3 and lock you both out. And they win on 3 all the way up to 10. So if the second person is smart, there's no way they're going to pick number 2. Because they know they're getting themselves trapped. So the second person might try number 10. And then they're just rolling the dice. So what's the third person going to do? Are they going to lock out number 1 by picking 2? Are they going to lock out me if I pick 10 by picking 9? You see, numbers, spatial relationships on a number line, all these things require that you think a little bit. And that's where we're really going with this. Think a little bit. Now you might say, okay, I get that, and now it makes sense. Only problem is, we have a national, what's the word? I was thinking of exhibition, but that's probably not. We have a great national televised example of how people can't do this. And that great televised example is the game show The Price is Right.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched The Price is Right, and I haven't in years, so maybe they changed the rules, but when I was growing up, you play all these games guessing prices of things, and at the end of the show, 3 people are there, and they roll out something, and they're going to try to guess the price. So it might be a refrigerator. Let's say it's a fancy refrigerator. And the first person's going to go, oh, I think it's worth $300. Ding, ding, ding.
That's at the beginning.
And the rule, this is at the end.
No,
And
it's at the beginning.
Yeah, that's what
But
I
that, it
said.
doesn't matter, go.
No, sorry. It's at the beginning. She said the same thing I did.
Okay, in the end, when the final 3 people are playing, I thought, this is going to destroy the whole sermon. At some point in The Price is Right, people are trying to guess the price or something, and there's 3 of them.
And not go over.
So that you can
Okay,
show-
peanut gallery, hush. Just let me tell the freaking story. You, elbow. So, the rule is you can't guess higher than the price. If you guess higher, you're out. So you have to be under the price. And the first person guesses 300. And the next person guesses 400. And the last person guesses 500. Okay, the last person should always be able to maximize their chance. And time after time after time on this show, whether it occurs at the beginning or the end, and now I have to go watch The Price is Right again, they don't do it right. So let's put you in the game show Price is Right. And you get to go last. You're lucky. That's the best spot. And it's a refrigerator. And it's worth somewhere in the multiple hundreds of dollars. And your opponents have guessed 300 and 400. And it's your turn. And all you got to do is get closest to the price without going over. Now you have a couple of options here. Did they both guess too low? In which case, remembering that they bet 300 and 400, your bet has to be $401. You don't give them any space. You're out for blood. You want to win. But you don't. They don't. They constantly guess 500, 550, something like that. Or maybe you think they both guessed way too high. You should bet $1. You should bet $1. Because by the rules, you just have to be under that price, and those two have to be over it. And you win. Watch The Price is Right. 1 out of 100 times somebody actually knows what they're doing. When I see someone bet like that, wow, finally, somebody... And I was 13 years old, 14 years old watching this, pulling my hair out. Don't these people understand odds? No, they don't. They do not. Your other possibility is you think, oh man, that price really is between 300 and 400. Well, again, your best bet is $301. You don't give that other person any space. So that's the part where I'm playing with numbers, teaching you odds, teaching you to think a little bit, and A lot of you probably already knew this. If you got on the prices right, you'd know how to make that bet. But watch the show. Constantly, people do not maximize their chance to win. Why does this happen? Why don't people think logically and rationally when they're trying to maximize their chance to win a game, to win a prize? Well, one, it could be pressure. Maybe they just, under pressure, seize up. Chancy's up here laughing. The famous story in our household is yard sale dickering. And we're running a yard sale, and we got something for $2, and the guy comes up and says, "What do you take for this?" And Jancy goes, "Oh, a quarter." And so that becomes the running gag at our house when Jancy's under pressure and trying to make a decision. I go, "A quarter." So it could be pressure. Maybe rather than going with logic or odds, you want to go with your gut or intuition. You just like the number 7. It's your lucky number. Even if it gives the other person a better chance to win. I'm going with my lucky number. Maybe they want to do something that feels right at the moment, trying to be in the moment and feel the messages from the cosmos or something. Or possibly there's peer pressure because people are in the back during the Price is Right and they're yelling prices at you and Bob Barker, is that the right guy? He's up here. Not anymore. It was Bob when I watched it. And he said, I need an answer, you know. You would think if you're going to go B on the Price is Right, you would have watched the show, someone figured out how to maximize your chance, but for some reason, and you have it on display on a million shows, because that show's been on forever, people don't do that. Now these and other problems arise not just on game shows, not just in gambling. They arise when people are thinking about ultimate truth, religion, philosophy, whatever. Sometimes they have sloppy thinking there also. And there's some very famous examples of it. And some of these I've talked about before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but one of them is Pascal's wager. And this wager goes along the lines of this. If you are going to bet your eternal soul on whether or not the Bible is true and whether or not there's a heaven and hell, the right bet is bet that there's a hell and do what you have to do not to go there. That's the right bet. And if you do anything else, you are maximizing your chances to end up in eternal torture. Of all the people in the universe to counter this, there is at least a meme going by. I don't know which episode it was actually on or if it was, but you can find this if you Google Homer Simpson and Pascal's wager. Because Homer Simpson is sitting there going, suppose we've chosen the wrong God. Every time we go to church, we're just making him madder and madder. And that, of course, is exactly the sloppy thinking of Pascal's wager. You've assumed there's only one God and one form of afterlife that you're betting on. Except we know from human history that that is not the case. And Homer's got it exactly right. Pascal's betting on the wrong God, possibly. In which case, he's not only not doing any good, he's doing himself more harm than good. And by trying to be a Christian, he's actually antagonizing whatever other God might be out there who's a little bit ticked off about all this. Here's another one. C.S. Lewis, the writer of the Chronicles of Narnia, amongst other things, is also a sort of, he's a Christian writer too, not a professional theologian, however. And he, in one of his books, writes this. It's from Mere Christianity. And again, I want you to see if you can pick out the logical flaw in this discussion. He's talking about progressive Christians and attacking progressive Christians who aren't literalists. I am trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him, Jesus. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. That is the one thing we must not say. A man who is merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with the man who says he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman, or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about him being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. Now it seems to me obvious that he was neither a lunatic nor a fiend, and consequently, however strange or terrifying or unlikely it may seem, I have to accept the view that he was and is God. So this is C.S. Lewis, and it's often called the liar, lord, or lunatic choice. You have three choices. Jesus was a liar, he's Lord, or he's a lunatic. Now, since we've already discussed the Price is Right and guessing the right number, I'm sure you can see the logical flaw here. And the logical flaw here is, amongst other things, how do you know that A, Jesus said the things being attributed to him, or for that matter, B, that Jesus actually existed, because there are scholars who are arguing he's a mythical creation, or C, maybe Jesus did say some of the things and others attributed some of those other words, like his claim to be God, which is somewhat, by the way, vague in the Bible. It's not nearly as crystal clear as people like to make it out, and it could mean other things other than simply I am God. Jesus wasn't really quite that clear on the point, but people have built doctrines around it. So C.S. Lewis says you only have three choices. Well, no, you don't. You have other choices, like we don't have the accurate words of Jesus, and we can pick some of the great moral teachings out of there and ignore the other ones because, as we discussed only a few weeks ago, that is what we do as humans. We find the things that are morally relevant in our lives, that we find move us to do the right things, and we can ignore the other things. And we're not just picking on Christianity here, because after all, C.S. Lewis was attacking Christians when he said this, the liberal and progressive Christians. But you have the same sort of stuff in all religions. We have something called the Heart Sutra in Zen Buddhism, and indeed all forms of Buddhism, which is one of their most important scriptures. I did a sermon on it a while back. Some of you were here for that. Some people feel that has to be written by the Buddha. Now, we know that it wasn't written till well after the Buddha died, and it was written in China. But some people say it can only be important if it was actually written by the Buddha, so they come up with this story that he wrote it, but it was just too profound for his time, and instead it was hidden and guarded by Nagas, which are sort of snake spirit creatures, and weren't released until humanity was ready for it. Now, there's no logical reason to believe that story is true, and indeed, it doesn't matter. The Heart Sutra stands and falls on itself. If you find the words meaningful and enlightening, they are, and the source doesn't matter. But sloppy logical thinking says, oh no, the Buddha had to have written it or it's not valuable. And again, there's other things like prayer. This is one I encountered many times as a young Christian. You know, you pray for something and it doesn't happen. Well, God obviously doesn't answer prayers because, I prayed about this and it didn't happen. God didn't heal this person. God didn't give me this job, whatever it might be. And then the pat answer is, well, God always answers your prayers, but the answer could be yes, no, or wait. And that satisfies some people. But really, what is the difference between that and God doesn't answer prayers? There is no difference. If the answer is yes, no, or wait, that's just life. That's just things happen or don't happen, or maybe they happen later. And that proves nothing about God answering prayer, and yet, I heard that many times. And it seemed to be the answer that satisfied some people. How about astrology? Maybe you believe in astrology that the stars have some effect on you. Maybe the gravitational pull of the planets. First of all, which system are you using? And are you aware that the stars and the seasons have shifted over hundreds and thousands of years? And are you aware that the gravitational pull of the doctor and nurses in the delivery room are greater than the gravitational pull of Jupiter or Neptune at the moment of your birth? There are many things about astrology that you can pick apart, and yet many people hold to it, and maybe some of you do. How about magic? You might enjoy casting spells. Can you cast a spell repeatedly with a predictable outcome? As though I hold this bowl, I drop it, it falls to the ground. I can do that 1,000,000 times. It happens every time. I've never seen anyone myself demonstrate a magic spell that works that way all the time. But people cast spells. They find them to be meaningful. What about the morality of casting a spell on somebody else? What if you're doing some kind of a attraction spell or a love spell? You want to get someone to fall in love with you. Why is that a moral thing to do? You're trying to interfere with somebody else's decision-making process. How about the existence of God? Do you think God cares if we believe that God exists? Well, maybe. But maybe God doesn't mind if you don't believe in God. Maybe there is a God that doesn't even notice you any more than you notice the millions of life forms on your body that exist on you and in you. But if God really did want us to know that God existed, God goes about it in a very strange way. Because in the Bible, you see some very definitive demonstrations of God's existence. And I'll tell you what, as much of a skeptic as I am, if he did what he did in the book of Joshua, where he just froze the sun for a day so they could keep fighting the battle, if the earth stopped rotating, and people didn't go flying off, and the gravitational forces didn't crush us, and chaos didn't ensue, and literally the earth stopped rotating for 24 hours, and then it started up again, and everyone was fine, and then a giant Zeus-like figure appears and says, I did that, I'm God, and I'm here to meet you now. I, for one, would be pretty impressed. I'd say, you know what? I might buy that this is God. God gave me a very impressive demonstration of something I cannot explain other than a miracle. And if our eternal destination of heaven or hell depended on our belief in God, and God wanted us all to go to heaven, you would think God would demonstrate a little more than God does. The list goes on and on. Reincarnation, heaven and hell, psychic healing, feng shui, speaking with the dead. Lots of things people hold to. Some of these things you may hold to. Are you willing? And this is really the crux of it. As I'm closing out my ministerial career, I want my sermons to center on some key points. And this key point is, if you hold something dear, are you willing to critically analyze it, even if you've held it dear for many years? Are you willing to critically put it to the test and say, am I being foolish? Or does this really have importance? Does this impact the morality of the life I live? Does it positively impact those around me? Does it require me to exercise in poor, sloppy thinking? Or does it demonstrate truth because it holds up to scrutiny? Truth holds up to scrutiny, I would maintain. We can argue about what truth is, but on a practical level, if something really doesn't work, and you can show that it really doesn't work, or at least it's not rational or logical, that doesn't mean it doesn't have value. But do you critically analyze why you're holding to it? Can you do better? Or is this really the best for you? And I'm not telling you what is or isn't, but I'm encouraging you to test the things you hold dear. I think that's very important. Ultimately, I would encourage each and every one of you, as you look at the things that drive your life, to be like the smart player on the cosmic version of The Price is Right. Maximize your chance for finding truth or meaning or value or the things that help you to live ethically and morally. And they may not all be the same thing for all of us. I get that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's one answer. I'm saying take what you believed seriously. Don't just assume it to be true because you've held it for a long time, or others have held it, your family and friends, and you sort of absorbed it in through osmosis, being around them, but rather take very seriously how you live and how the things you hold dear impact how you live. And with that, I close, and thank you so much for being here this morning.